Let's get to our guy, Russell Baxter. He's an NFL writer and NFL historian. You can find his work currently on FanSided NFL. What's going on, Russell?
Oh, I don't know what's going on. Anything?
Not much.
So we're having
what a loaded question that was.
Right? We've kind of been having this intense discussion, and it's not unfamiliar to you because it's kind of followed him since he's come into the league when you compare it to his talent. I think Justin Herbert is a really good quarterback. I'm trying to convince my partner of that. And he does make a good point, though, that last night is kind of a microcosm of Herbert, right? At some point, he has to be able to win a game like that when you're 21-30 with just the one touchdown. He goes back to the open receiver that he missed. For you, who is Justin Herbert?
I think Justin Herbert is still more of a passer than a quarterback. And I differentiate that because there are great quarterbacks who are not necessarily gifted passers. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
There are some very gifted passers who are not necessarily overall quarterbacks. And, it's funny. Well, I don't know if you want to credit Justin Herbert per se, but a week earlier, they did win a 17-13 game at Atlanta. Now, of course, they picked off Kirk Cousins 4 times, which has now become.
Boy, he was bad again yesterday. Whew.
Well, it's now become vogue to pick Kirk Cousins, unfortunately. And I'm not sure what's going on there, but I heard 3 weeks ago that Atlanta was on its way to a division title, and I don't know about you. I checked the NFL rule book. It's hard to win that when you're in second place.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and listen, Kansas City has done this to a lot of different people. It's funny, the Chargers defensively this year, that's really the story with them. And I went back, if you go back to the merger, the Chargers, I don't think have ever led the league in fewest points allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'd have to go back and check the AFL. Of course, there was only like 18-9, fewer teams back then and so on. But they've always been known more for offense than defense. And this year, think about this. They held the Chiefs under 20 points both times this year and lost both games.
Yep.
So, but I will also say this. Justin Herbert, along with his defense, helped put 27 points on the board early in the second quarter of a playoff game, and they couldn't win that one either. So I don't know if it's necessarily about Justin Herbert. And I think it's the fact that if the Chargers are still kind of trying to find themselves in a division which has been unexpectedly top-heavy.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, think about a year ago. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl with 11 wins, and no one else in the division had a winning record. Now the Raiders can't win to save their lives, and everyone else does have a winning record. So this is kind of like the jump that was kind of made from the AFC South from 2022 to 2023. So, again, I don't know if it's necessary. Herbert, listen, the J.K. Dobbins play has been a big part of what they've done this year. But Kansas City it's been a remarkable year for them being able to win these close games. And I think people forget you remember last year at one time during the regular season, guys, I want to say the Chiefs were split their last 10 games.
Mm.
They were 5-5 in the last 10 regular season games. And then they got hot for the playoffs. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like getting Duke in the NCAA tournament. You really don't care what the hell they do during the regular season. Then Mike Krzyzewski shows up and they win the title. So I'm not saying the Chiefs are going to do that this year, although they got a big boost with the Bills losing yesterday as far as home field and so on. So I don't know what to make of the Chargers. And I will say this, they've got quite the test coming up this week because Tampa Bay's got its deficiencies on defense, but they score points on just about everybody.
Yeah, they can't stop a soul.
Russell, let me stay in the NFC West real quick here because I find we try and have an NFL guy on every week. I find myself asking this question every week, and I still don't know the answer. And is it Kansas City's doing this because they just have so much winning DNA they just find ways to win games? Or are we just looking at a bunch of smoke and mirrors? Like, I still don't know. Do you have an idea?
Well, they've been smoking these mirrors for about a year and a half now. All right. Now, I don't know about you. I prefer my brisket being smoked. Okay. Not my mirrors.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah.
But listen, there are eerily similarities to the early days of the Patriots dynasty with some of this stuff, where they just found ways to scratch out wins. To this remains one of my favorite statistical oddities ever. The year the Patriots won their first Super Bowl, guys, 2001, they played 3 playoff games against the Raiders, the Steelers, and the Rams. Do you know how many, in their 3 games total, do you know how many offensive TDs they had in those 3 games?
And I will say 5.
I will say 3.
Jeez.
1 each. A Tom Brady run in the snow, a Drew Bledsoe touchdown pass because Brady got hurt in the AFC title game.
Yep.
And then a Brady touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. Do you know how many their defense and special teams scored? 3.
Wow.
A punt return, a block field goal return, and a Ty Law pick six. And they walked away with a Super Bowl title. Now, last year, Kansas City wasn't exactly an offensive juggernaut. They gave the Dolphins the Arnold Schwarzenegger version of Mr. Freeze in the playoffs. But, they went back and forth with the Bills. They only scored 17 in the AFC title game against a team, and Baltimore has a good defense. And they struggled to score points in the Super Bowl. And it's been kind of this way. They're just scratching and clawing and winning the battles of attrition, which should say something because every time they tried to do it the other way, remember 2018, they had one of the highest scoring teams in the league. And they couldn't beat New England to save their lives. And in one game, would they score 40 and lost 43-40 in the regular season? And then in overtime, they scored 31 and still couldn't beat them. So there's a lot to be said for defense. So I don't know if it's necessarily smoke and mirrors. Maybe the other 31 teams in the league might want to look into, maybe Bath and Body Works. They have the same mirror.
Russell, no, I asked this question in the offseason, and it was a total fluke just because I like McDonald a lot. And I was just looking at some teams in this division with my partner being such a San Francisco fan. But the question I would ask our national guys at the time, because there were some similarities, especially defensively in their roster makeup. I said, would you rather be the Rams or the Chargers? That was 3 months ago. And now I'm watching this division unfold. And it's probably a smarter question. I just lucked into it. Going forward, would you rather be not the Chargers, the Rams or the Seahawks?
Well, that's actually an excellent question because you've got 2 men who are head coaches with different specialties who are, Sean McVay got his job in 2017 with the Rams because he was quote unquote kind of the golden boy of offense. And I'm not being snarky or anything. He was a hot commodity. And after what Mike McDonald did in 2 years with Baltimore, he became the defensive hot commodity.
Yeah.
And, but what I think has been remarkable of what McDonald does is their defense at times has looked horrible. Their special teams have looked at sometimes even worse. And yet Geno Smith, who continues to have this amazing comeback story, and listen, they got off to a good start last year. They wound up finishing 9-8 and missed the playoffs. There's a difference. Listen, they won their first 3 games this year, but muddled in the middle, and now they're on a 4-game winning streak. Mm-hmm. So they're a little streaky, which kind of shows their youth in certain areas and so on. But I'll tell you, they bring the wood. I mean, they are very good.
thump.
Very, very physical, and that epitomizes what he was in Baltimore. And it's funny. It's not like they've been, if they lost to the Rams at home. They gave up a 103-yard pick six. Yep. They lost. The Giants have won only 2 games, and Seattle lost them at home. Okay, so I mean, I know Coney Island's famous for roller coasters, but this has been a hell of a ride. Okay, but listen, they are. Think about this. They have the Rams on their heels, and I think in some ways that's a good thing because they know that if the Rams beat them for the second time, they would have swept them, and Seattle could very, very quickly go from being a division leader to being out of the playoffs altogether. And that's because the NFC North is, incredible. Okay? I've seen other divisions. Can you imagine winning 11 games and you're still not in first place?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like the Vikings?
And there are times they look spectacular.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They're taking away the ball. Okay? Sam Darnold, even with his flaws at times, has really been embraced by that team.
You talk about streaky. When he's going, he looks. There's that arm. There's that quarterback versus a thrower that you were talking about. There are times he looks sensational.
Yes, he looks like the 3rd overall pick in the draft in 2018. And then there are times he looks like the 255th pick in the draft because of the turnovers. And I don't know if that's. Does he play too fast at times? Does he? I'm having a Tommy Boy moment here. JoJo the Engine Boy. Remember when he's in the movie? Is he sometimes going too fast and loses himself? Okay, and it's not all about him. Kevin O'Connell last year, he lost Kirk Cousins in the middle of the year. They scratched and clawed. They finished 7-10. And when he took over the team, they were a playoff team a couple of years ago, but they faded at the end of the year. This Vikings team's just the opposite. They started strong. Okay, they had the 2-game blip in 5 days. Remember, they lost the Lions, and 4 days later they lost to the Rams on the Thursday night. They haven't lost since. So they take away the football. They do a lot of good things. They run. They're very balanced. Very dangerous, and I don't know if they're going to catch the Lions. They already lost to them once, and they lost at home to them, by the way, which is the thing about Detroit. Detroit won at Green Bay and at Minnesota, which should tell you something about them. So, Darnold is a really fascinating. Here's what general managers around the league need to do. They need to find out who the Jets are drafting in the first couple of rounds. Sit on it for 5 years and then sign them.
Wow.
So it's about to be Zach Wilson's anytime now.
Think about this. And it was 4 weeks ago. And what would the press and the lead-up story in New York be? A playoff game between Geno Smith and Sam Darnold.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. So kind of along the lines of poor franchises, how did the Giants tail spin? So 5 weeks ago, Ravi asked me, would I rather be the Panthers or the Giants? And I was like, this was pre-Daniel Jones. And I was like, well, the Giants have a nice infrastructure. They seem to be well ran. They're going to need probably another coach, but I probably would take the Giants. 5 weeks later, I hate to even say this, but Carolina actually looks functional. And the Giants do not. Like, what happened so fast, Russell?
I think I got to give Dave Canales some credit here. And I don't know if it was all him, and it was the upstairs as well. But when you see something 2 years in a row on 2 different teams, it should open your eyes a little. What was Baker Mayfield like last year with the Bucs? And who was his offensive coordinator?
Yeah.
Okay, now, Dave Canales is in Carolina for 2 games, and he sits Bryce Young down. And it's the best thing, as of right now, it's the best thing to happen to Bryce Young.
Yeah.
Who now looks like,
no.
I mean, he doesn't look like a Pro Bowl quarterback, but the thing you have to like about him on third down, for the most part, I mean, he did throw one ugly pick yesterday, okay? But that's one of the hottest teams in the league in Philadelphia, and they went toe-to-toe with them. They went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
They do look very highly functional. Adam Thielen is looking like the Adam Thielen from the Vikings a couple of years ago. I mean, they definitely have some pieces there, and this was a 2-win team, Lisa. This is a team that hasn't been in the playoffs since 2017. So, no, listen, Saquon Barkley, and the Giants made the decision on a guy who might break the NFL rushing record this season. Okay?
Yeah.
And listen, by the way, and I've pointed this out in a couple columns I've written, and it's probably a little off the point. Do you remember last year three running backs that played for a one-year deal because they were franchised? That was Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and Tony Pollard. How are they all doing this year?
No. Wow. Well, I forget about Pollard.
Yeah,
too.
I did too.
That's a good pull. Listen, that's a good pull, and it's post-injury.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And by the way, the Titans didn't want to re-sign Derrick Henry.
Yep.
And the Bengals cut and then traded Joe Mixon. How are they doing?
Oh, wow. That's funny, too, because Ravi's tried to make the case, especially with the backs that are coming out this year in college. Could we see a little bit more of a return to running the – especially, I look at the Bills, and they still need to give
James Cook's a little bit more.
The ball more. But I look at some of these teams, the Chiefs, that can run the ball when they want to or need to.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Look at the line. Like, they're for as high flying and whatever as the Lions are,
Montgomery
and Gibbs are silly when it comes to controlling. You just can't get the ball back.
Well, and the thing about Gibbs is in a blink of an eye, he's 40 yards downfield.
Yeah.
Okay. Montgomery does kind of the dirty work. We've seen running back combinations where one guy was more the runner and the other guy was more the versatile guy. These are both versatile guys.
Mm-hmm.
And they came into the week fourth in the league in rushing. Okay. So, and fifth in the league in run defense. So you wonder why the Lions are doing what they're doing. They run and they stop the run. And as my friend, as I can safely say, Sterling Sharp used to tell me when I worked with him at ESPN, he would always point out teams that were bad running teams, and they also had bad run defenses. And I asked him, why is that? He goes, Russ, it's because they don't practice against the run.
Well, let me get you out of here.
If your team is always not running the ball in practice, how the hell are you going to stop it during a game?
No. Well, let me get you out on this, Russell, and I get it. You're too, this franchise with how it's run, but what they have in place is or is not the Chicago Bears the best job available next year?
I think so, because one thing Ryan Poles did do was surround him with veteran weapons and a wide receiver in the draft. Okay, their offensive line is spotty. It could be better, but it just needs some it needs some continuity. Defensively, they were a no-show yesterday. Okay, at San Francisco against a beat-up San Francisco team. But I would agree with that. And now, if you could get Chicago to move out of the NFC North, so they don't have to play the Packers, Lions, and Vikings all the time, especially this year, okay, which has been very, very rough on them. But you're also having like almost historical season from the NFC North. So, no, I agree with you. I think Chicago is a great landing place for someone. And hopefully they get along with the general manager.
That's Russell Baxter. He covers the NFL for a variety of places, including FanSided NFL. Russell,
fantastic stuff,
we appreciate your time as always. Great stuff.
Hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks, Russell.